A little girl vanished without a trace during a carnival game. Years later, her sister returns to the abandoned fairground and discovers a cryptic message hidden beneath the carousel. What she uncovers will change everything they thought they knew. The summer night bloomed with color and sound as the carnival rolled into the quiet town of Millfield, drawing families from every corner with its glowing lights, sizzling food stands, and the music of a calliope that seemed to float on the breeze. Children darted between game booths, sticky with melted snow cones and cotton candy, while parents strolled behind, hands clasped and smiles relaxed. The air was electric with joy and nostalgia, a bubble of magic that made the ordinary world feel far away. Among the crowd were the Parkers, a typical suburban family trying to salvage a strained evening. 12-year-old Lily clutched her little brother Ethan's hand tightly as their parents lingered at the ticket booth. Ethan, only 8, had a boundless energy that exhausted everyone, but somehow made Lily feel alive. Tonight, his excitement was dialed to 11, bouncing on his heels with his eyes wide in amazement at the carousel. It was the centerpiece of the fair, its golden poles shining under the carnival lights, the painted horses frozen in mid-gallop like a living dream. "Can I ride again, Lily? Please? Just one more time," Ethan begged, his voice tinged with urgency, already trying to tug his hand free from hers. Lily hesitated. Her parents had just stepped away to grab funnel cakes, and she wasn't supposed to let him out of her sight. But the carousel was safe. It was right there. She could see every part of it. "Okay," she said finally, relenting with a sigh. "One more ride. But I'm standing right here, okay? Don't get off until I say." Ethan beamed and ran ahead, handing his ticket to the operator and choosing a white horse near the center. The calliope tune started again, twinkling, cheerful, innocent, and the carousel began to spin. Lily stood just outside the railing, arms crossed, watching as Ethan passed by with each rotation, waving and grinning like a prince on a parade float. But then he didn't pass by again. The carousel slowed, the music wound down, and families began to help their children off the horses. Lily waited, expecting Ethan to appear, to jump down and run back to her. But the seconds stretched unnaturally long. Her brow furrowed. "Ethan," she called, stepping closer. "Ethan." She pushed through the crowd, eyes scanning every horse, every rider dismounting. Panic began to crawl up her throat. The white horse was empty. No sign of Ethan. She ran to the operator. "Did you see a little boy, 8 years old, brown hair, blue shirt, on the white horse?" she asked frantically. The man frowned, shrugged. "I think so. Maybe. They all look the same after a while." Her heart pounded in her ears. She checked behind the carousel, near the food stands, under benches, everywhere. Nothing. Her parents returned just in time to see Lily screaming Ethan's name into the thickening night. Police were called. Searchlights lit up the carnival grounds. Loudspeakers called for Ethan over and over. The entire fairground was swept from end to end. Volunteers helped, hounds sniffed, drones hovered, but there was no sign of the boy. Not a trace. By sunrise, the carousel stood still and silent, its bright horses now haunting. The music had stopped, and so had Lily's childhood. The morning after Ethan's disappearance began like a nightmare without end. The flashing lights of the carnival were gone, packed up and driven away as quickly as they had arrived, leaving behind only dead grass and broken memories. The police interviews were endless, hour after hour of questions that blurred together. What exactly did you see? When was the last time you saw him? Did you turn away? For how long? Lily sat in the station for hours, her eyes hollow, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. Her parents sat beside her, but there was a noticeable space between them, both emotionally and physically. Grief had already begun to divide them. No one could meet each other's eyes without pain. And though no one said it aloud, it became clear that everyone thought the same thing. Lily had looked away. Lily had let him go. School was no better. Kids whispered behind her back in the hallways. Adults gave her pitiful, uncomfortable smiles that made her stomach churn. The teachers stopped calling on her in class. Her friends stopped inviting her out. She became that girl, the one whose brother disappeared, the one who messed up, Lily stopped speaking in class. She started writing instead, pages and pages in her journal. Every night, replaying the carnival, the ride, the last words Ethan said. She memorized them, etched them into her brain. "Can I ride again, Lily? Please." If she had just said no. If she had just held his hand tighter. If she hadn't blinked. At home, the silence became unbearable. Her parents, once warm and loving, became strangers. Her mother sat at the kitchen table most nights, staring blankly at old photos. Her father began working later and later hours. Meals were eaten in silence. Conversations died before they started. Years passed, but the pain didn't. The posters faded from telephone poles, but Lily never stopped looking. She kept every newspaper clipping, every email from the detective, every tip, no matter how far-fetched. She scoured online forums, joined missing persons groups, even learned how to dig through public records. She convinced herself that she had missed something, that Ethan wasn't just gone. He was hidden, somewhere. And beneath all the sadness, all the isolation, one thing grew stronger each year: guilt. A guilt that gnawed at her like rot. She had been the last to see him, and she hadn't saved him. By the time she turned 22, Lily had reinvented herself as a journalism student. Her mind sharp, her instincts trained to seek truth. But she carried her past like an invisible shackle. Her passion wasn't ambition. It was penance. She had sworn to find out what happened to her brother, no matter what it took. And that oath would soon lead her back to the place where it all began. 10 years had passed, but the memory of that night never faded for Lily Parker. Now 22 and a senior at the university, she returned to Millfield with a hardened determination carved into her every movement. Her studies in investigative journalism had shaped her into someone who didn't just ask questions, she demanded answers. Her professors admired her tenacity, her classmates feared her intensity, and her parents, well, they barely spoke anymore. Their family, once whole, had been shattered that summer night. Her father had moved out 2 years ago. Her mother floated through life like a ghost. Lily had become her own anchor and her own storm. She returned to Millfield on the same week the carnival came back for the first time in a decade. A coincidence, maybe, or maybe something more. The posters had gone up around town. The Brightmoor Traveling Carnival, 1 week only, featuring the famous Golden Carousel. The same name, the same ride, the same music that haunted her dreams. Lily stood at the edge of the fairground that first evening, watching the lights blink to life as dusk fell. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from something sharper, more primal, a sense of unfinished business. She clutched a worn leather notebook to her chest, filled with old police notes, her own research, timelines, maps of the carnival layout from the night Ethan disappeared. She had studied everything obsessively. This wasn't just a visit. It was a mission. She bought a ticket and stepped inside. The scent hit her first: greasy popcorn, spun sugar, and something else, something metallic, faint but familiar. She made her way past laughing children and cheerful couples, her eyes focused ahead. And there it was, the carousel. It looked exactly as she remembered. The same golden trim, the same galloping horses, the same tune chirping from the calliope like a ghost humming in her ear. Time hadn't aged it. If anything, it looked newer, as if frozen in place while everything else moved on. Lily approached the carousel slowly, her gaze fixed on the white horse near the center, the one Ethan had chosen. She felt her breath catch. Her hand grazed a brass pole as the ride spun lazily, then slowed to a stop. The operator was a younger man this time, maybe mid-30s, in a red uniform. "One ticket?" he asked. She didn't answer. "How long have you worked here?" she asked instead. He blinked. "About 5 years now." "What? Do you know if this carousel was here 10 years ago?" she pressed. He scratched his head. Yeah, it's one of our oldest pieces. Pretty iconic." She nodded, filing the information away. Then, as casually as she could, she walked around the perimeter, scanning the ground. Something was tugging at her, an instinct she couldn't explain. She circled twice. On the third pass, something caught her eye. Just beneath the wooden platform, Wedged between two boards where they met the base of support beam was a sliver of folded paper, aged, yellowed at the edges, but unmistakably out of place. Heart racing, she knelt and carefully pried it free. It was small, folded tightly, and smelled faintly of old wood and time. She unfolded it with trembling fingers. There were only 6 words on it, written in messy, childish handwriting. Find a red star. He's alive. Lily's breath hitched. Her knees weakened. She read the words again and again until they blurred. It had to be Ethan. It had to be. No one else would know. Tears sprang to her eyes, but she held them back. This wasn't the time to break. This was the time to dig deeper. Lily stood motionless for nearly a full minute, her eyes fixed on the words scrawled across the yellowed note. Find a red star. He's alive. Her mind was racing. How long had it been there? Who put it there? And more importantly, what did it mean? She looked around, half expecting someone to come snatch the paper from her hand, to tell her it was a mistake, a prank, anything. But no one noticed. Around her, the carnival buzzed on in ignorant joy. Children laughed. Lights blinked. Music played. But for Lily, time had stopped. She folded the note carefully, placed it between 2 pages in her journal, and stepped back from the carousel. Her eyes scanned everything now with a new purpose. What was the red star? She took a seat on a nearby bench, breathing deeply to calm her nerves. Then she opened her notebook and began flipping back through the sketches she'd made of the original carnival layout. Booths, tents, rides, paths. Was there a red star she'd missed? A marker? A decoration? Suddenly, she remembered something. In a grainy photograph she had saved from a local newspaper archive, one taken the night of Ethan's disappearance. There had been a booth behind the carousel, shaped like a star. She flipped to the page and found the image. The picture wasn't high resolution, but the sign above the booth was just legible enough. Shooting star ring toss. And painted in the center was a giant red star. Lily's pulse quickened. She stood and headed toward the rear of the carousel, eyes scanning for the booth. But the carnival layout was slightly different now, modernized perhaps, or intentionally rearranged. The Red Star booth wasn't where it had been a decade ago. Still, she wove through the crowds, checking every tent, every game, every corner. Then she saw it. Faded, but there, the old shooting star sign hanging crooked above a booth now shuttered and abandoned. It wasn't operational this year. Dust clung to its corners. The red star on the wood was chipped and dull, but still there. Lily ducked behind the booth. Her breath caught as she saw that the back panel was loose. She crouched, fingers slipping under the edge, and pried it open. Inside was darkness, and a narrow passage, more like a crawl space, barely wide enough for a child. She hesitated, but then she thought of Ethan, of his voice, his laugh, and she crawled in. The crawl space was tight and musty, the air thick with the scent of damp wood and something more metallic. Rust, or maybe something far worse. Lily's hands trembled slightly as she moved forward on her elbows, the journal slung behind her in a satchel. Dust clung to her skin, and every shuffle forward sent a creak through the aging wood. Her breathing was shallow, not from fear, but from sheer focus. The tunnel beneath the old shooting star booth curved slightly, and she could feel a faint draft coming from deeper in. That meant air circulation. That meant this space led somewhere. She paused after a few yards and pulled out her phone, switching on the flashlight. The beam revealed scrawled symbols on the inner beams, crude stars, eyes, spirals, and a child's name written over and over. Ethan. The name appeared in chalk, charcoal, even what looked like scratched etchings in the wood. Some of the handwriting was small and crude. Others, shakier, older. Her breath caught. This wasn't just a random crawl space. Someone had lived down here. She moved further, her hands brushing the narrow wooden floorboards. Suddenly, she felt something catch her fingers, a sharp ridge. She pulled back and found a small object, wedged between the planks. A toy soldier, dirty and faded, its paint nearly rubbed off. Her heart clenched. It was Ethan's. She remembered him clutching it in the back seat of the car on the drive to the carnival that day. Now, there was no room for doubt. He had been here. The tunnel suddenly widened into a small pocket-like chamber, a hollow beneath the carnival that seemed hidden from the world above. The space was large enough to crouch in, and in the corners sat a rotted sleeping bag, a cracked flashlight, and a pile of children's books, all stained and torn. A makeshift room. Someone had tried to make this place livable, barely. Lily turned slowly, her flashlight catching something else, scraps of drawings taped to the walls. Crayon sketches of animals, carousels, stars, and monsters. Large, shadowy figures with white masks and long fingers. She stared, frozen, at one in particular. It showed a boy, hiding beneath the carousel, while tall masked figures stood above, their arms outstretched. In the corner of the drawing, the boy had written one word in shaky handwriting. Trapped. Lily felt her throat tighten. She sank to her knees, trying to keep herself from panicking. This wasn't just evidence. This was testimony. Ethan had survived, at least for a time. He'd drawn these. He'd left a trail. And maybe he was still trying to reach out. The sound of laughter and carnival music above felt impossibly far away now, as if this hidden underworld existed in an entirely different dimension. And just as she turned to exit, her flashlight caught something on the far wall, a narrow gap leading deeper. It wasn't part of the tunnel she entered from. She crawled toward it, pried the boards apart, and saw what lay beyond, a ladder, rusty and old, descending even further into darkness. She gritted her teeth. If Ethan had gone down there, so would she. She tightened her grip on the flashlight and climbed down into the unknown. The air grew colder as Lily descended the ladder. Each step groaned under her weight, the rust flaking beneath her palms. A strange sensation crept up her spine, part dread, part determination. Her flashlight flickered once, then steadied. She refused to let fear get the better of her. She had come too far. When she reached the bottom, she found herself in a space that made her stomach lurch. It wasn't dirt or earth like she expected. It was tile. Moldy, cracked tile. The walls were concrete, old and sweating moisture. Pipes ran along the ceiling, some dripping steadily into rusty puddles. It was a service tunnel, part of the old Millfield sewer infrastructure, maybe even an old carnival maintenance route. But what struck Lily most was that this place wasn't abandoned. Someone had been here recently. Footprints in the grime. Candy wrappers. A plastic water bottle that hadn't yet collapsed from time. And on the wall in red chalk, still here. Her breath caught. The writing matched the note beneath the carousel. Same handwriting. Same urgency. She followed the narrow corridor, careful not to make noise. Her footsteps echoed, despite her best efforts. The path twisted, then led to a heavy door, slightly ajar. She pushed it open slowly. The room beyond looked like a forgotten storage area. Boxes of old carnival props, broken ticket booths, crates of costumes. But something was wrong. The props weren't just thrown in at random. They were arranged. Mannequins dressed like clowns stood against the wall in a strange, ritualistic formation. A carousel horse leaned in the center, covered in red smears. Not paint. It smelled coppery. Lily recoiled. She stepped carefully around the mess, her eyes scanning for anything that could explain this nightmare tableau. Then she saw it, a corner lined with makeshift bedding, scraps of food, a small radio. This was someone's hiding place. Then a sound. Light footsteps behind a stack of boxes. Lily froze. Slowly, she raised the flashlight toward the noise. A figure stepped out. Not a child. A boy. No, a teenager. Pale, thin, with eyes wide and hollow. His hair hung in uneven tufts, and he clutched something tight to his chest. It took her a moment, but she knew. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice cracking. The boy didn't speak. He just stared at her, as if trying to decide whether she was real or just another ghost in the dark. Lily stood frozen, her heart pounding so loudly she feared it might scare him away. The boy didn't speak, didn't move, just stared with eyes that held too many years, too much pain. His cheeks were sunken, his skin pale and drawn tight like he hadn't seen sunlight in ages. And yet, in that gaunt face, she could still see the little brother she remembered. His hair had darkened, and there were faint scars trailing down his neck, but the way he clutched that old toy soldier to his chest was unmistakable. "Ethan, it's me," she said softly, stepping forward with care. "It's Lily, your sister." At first, he didn't react. He simply blinked, as though he didn't understand. Or perhaps he did, and he didn't believe. His gaze darted around the room, toward the shadows, the mannequin clowns, the exit. He took a step back. "No one followed me," she whispered. "You're safe. I swear. Please just say something." He tilted his head slightly, his lips parting just enough to form words, but nothing came out. Then, finally, in a whisper barely audible, he rasped, "You're not real." Tears sprang to Lily's eyes. "I am. I swear I am. I've been looking for you since the day you disappeared. You wrote the note, didn't you? Under the carousel. Still here. I found it." A flicker of recognition crossed his face. His grip on the toy soldier loosened just a little. "I wanted to leave. But he watches. He always watches." Lily's brow furrowed. "Who, Ethan? Who's watching?" The boy shivered violently, taking another step back into the shadows. "The man in the mask. The one with the music." Her blood ran cold. "What do you mean, music?" He pointed toward the broken carousel horse in the middle of the room. "He plays it, over and over, every night. That song. I dream about it, even when I'm awake." Lily stepped forward and reached out slowly, her hand hovering near his. "Ethan, we have to get out of here. I can help you. I'm not leaving without you." He looked down, silent again, the weight of fear pressing visibly on his shoulders. Then, suddenly, he turned, darted behind a stack of crates, and pulled out a small, battered journal. The same one Lily had been reading earlier. More pages. "I kept writing, so I wouldn't forget." He handed it to her with shaking hands. "If you want to know the truth, read it. But we have to hurry. If he hears you, he'll come." A loud creak echoed from above them. Ethan flinched. "He's close." The room fell into a tense, suffocating silence. Lily clutched the journal to her chest, every hair on her body standing on end. The sound that came from above was no longer just a creak. It was footsteps, slow, deliberate, dragging across the floorboards above like someone pacing just beyond reach. Ethan crouched, trembling, behind a pile of crates, his eyes wide with primal fear. "He's here," he whispered. "You have to hide." But Lily didn't move. She stared up at the ceiling, feeling her breath catch in her throat. She needed answers, and now she was too close to run. "Who is he, Ethan?" she demanded in a hushed voice. "What does he want?" Ethan closed his eyes. "He comes for the forgotten ones, the kids who get lost. He promises games and sweets and forever rides, then locks you away down here, where no one hears you scream." Lily opened the journal quickly, flipping to the newer pages written in frantic, messy handwriting. The entries painted a nightmare, descriptions of a man wearing a white porcelain mask, always smiling, a ringleader's coat, long gloves. He never spoke, but the calliope music always played when he came. Ethan described other children too, names like Max, Josie, and Ben. Children who were with him, until they weren't, until they vanished in the night. Some entries described the masked man performing twisted shows in the tunnels, forcing the kids to clap or sing or watch grotesque puppet performances. Anyone who disobeyed was taken through a hidden door that only the masked man could open. None ever returned. Lily's hands trembled as she read. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. It wasn't just a case of a lost boy. It was something darker. A predator who'd used the carnival as cover, maybe for years. A monster hiding in plain sight. The journal's final page chilled her to the bone. If someone finds this, tell them he's not just a man. He doesn't age, doesn't sleep. I think he feeds on fear. If you hear the music, it's already too late. Suddenly, from somewhere deeper in the tunnel, the faint sound of carousel music began to play. Soft, faint, but unmistakable. The haunting tune danced through the concrete like fingers brushing down her spine. Ethan looked at Lily, panic rising in his voice. "He knows you're here." Lily grabbed his hand. "Then we're getting out. Now." But just as they turned to flee, a shadow fell across the entrance. The carousel music grew louder, and a tall figure in a porcelain mask stepped into the tunnel, head tilted, arms outstretched in eerie welcome. The game had begun. The masked man stepped forward, his porcelain face emotionless, yet somehow dripping with malevolence. That eerie smile painted across his mask didn't change, but the weight of his presence felt crushing. His long, gloved fingers twitched slightly, as though he were preparing for a performance. And the music, it grew louder, circling them like a predator. "Run!" Ethan screamed, tugging at Lily's arm. She didn't hesitate. She clutched his hand tightly and bolted in the opposite direction, her flashlight beam bouncing wildly off the tunnel walls. Behind them, the masked figure gave chase, his footfalls slow but unrelenting, echoing like a haunting rhythm in the tunnels. They darted past the clown mannequins, past the crates of decayed carnival props and old signage. The flashlight flickered. Once, twice, then died. Darkness swallowed them. Ethan yanked her left. "This way. I know another tunnel. One he doesn't use." Lily followed blindly, her heart pounding in her throat. The walls grew tighter, the air damper. She could barely see, relying on Ethan's memory to guide them. They turned a corner, then another, until finally they squeezed through a gap in the wall where a metal grate had rusted away. Inside was a narrow maintenance shaft, walls covered in mold, wires dangling like vines. The music was muffled now, distant. But they didn't stop. "How do you know he won't come here?" Lily panted. Ethan wiped sweat from his brow. "He only follows the old show tunnels, the ones built for the rides and performers. This was forgotten. I used to hide here, when I couldn't take it anymore." They crawled for what felt like forever, until finally they spilled out into a small chamber lined with broken plumbing and cracked tile floors. Lily collapsed against the wall, catching her breath, while Ethan watched the tunnel behind them. The silence was suffocating. Lily looked down at the journal still clutched in her hand. "We need to expose him, Ethan. People need to know what he's done. To you. To the others." Ethan's face darkened. "They tried once. A boy escaped long before me. Told the police. They didn't believe him. Called it an urban legend. Said it was just nightmares. But I've seen him. I have proof now. Your journal. And you." She reached out and cupped his face gently. "You're going to help bring this place down." He nodded slowly, eyes glassy. "If we make it out." Lily stood, determination rising like fire in her chest. "We will. But I need to know. How we get out of here? Where does this lead?" "There's a service ladder," Ethan said. "It goes up to an old storage room beneath the funhouse. I think it's still locked from the inside, but I found keys once. If they're still there, we can get out." They moved quickly, crawling deeper into the forgotten shaft, the silence now their only companion. But every creak, every echo made Lily flinch. The masked man might not be in this tunnel, but she could feel his eyes. Watching, waiting. The maintenance shaft opened into a concrete crawl space with a low ceiling and rusted pipes overhead. Ethan led the way, carefully lifting a sheet of plywood that had been wedged across an old service entrance. On the other side, they found a corroded iron ladder bolted to the wall, climbing into darkness. "This is it," he whispered. "Up there, that's the old storage." Lily swallowed hard and began to climb, Ethan close behind. The metal rungs groaned under their weight, years of decay threatening to snap at any moment. When they reached the top, they found themselves staring at a thick wooden door reinforced with chains and padlocks from the inside. Ethan pulled out a small bundle from behind a loose brick, a set of old, tarnished keys. His hands trembled as he tried each one. Clunk, clink. Finally, one clicked. The padlock dropped to the ground with a hollow thud. Lily helped him unwind the chains, each link clattering loudly in the silence. She held her breath, fearing the sound might summon the masked man. When the door creaked open, they were met with pitch blackness. But this time Lily had prepared. She switched on her backup flashlight, a smaller beam, but enough to reveal what lay ahead. It was a storage room, just like Ethan said. Dust-covered crates, stacks of old mirrors, and shelves filled with broken toys and costume parts. In the corner was a rotting clown suit, slumped over like a corpse. But the most disturbing thing was a wall covered in newspaper clippings and photographs. Missing child reports. Dozens of them. Some dated as far back as the 1970s. Each pinned with red string and scribbled notes. Most showed smiling kids holding balloons. Some photos had been defaced. Eyes scratched out, mouths drawn into gruesome grins. Lily stepped closer. Her fingers brushed one of the photos and gasped. It was her, from a school field trip years ago. She looked no older than 12. She had no memory of ever seeing this photo taken. Beneath it, scrawled in faded pen, were the words, "Too curious, but not ready. Try again later." Her blood ran cold. "He's been watching me since I was a child." Ethan looked horrified. "You were marked. That's why he left the note. Why he lured you back. They needed to get out. Now." Suddenly, from behind the storage crates, came a soft scrape. Then another. Then laughter. High-pitched. Warped. Not a child's voice, but something mimicking one. Ethan spun around. "We're not alone." Lily backed toward the door. "Run. Back down the ladder now." But it was too late. The door slammed shut behind them. The flashlight flickered. The laughter grew louder. And from the shadows, the porcelain mask gleamed once more. The moment the door slammed shut, the light from Lily's flashlight sputtered, casting frantic shadows against the cluttered walls of the storage room. The laughter, shrill and broken, reverberated off every surface. It wasn't just in front of them now. It was all around, surrounding them. Lily's heart pounded against her ribs as she fumbled with the flashlight, giving it a sharp shake. The beam steadied, illuminating the wall of newspaper clippings again, but something had changed. Some of the pictures had been removed. Others now had red excess drawn across the faces. A few of the strings connecting the clippings were freshly cut, swinging slightly, as though recently disturbed. Ethan grabbed a rusted pipe from the ground and stepped in front of Lily, his voice shaking. "Show yourself. We're not afraid of you." The laughter stopped. Then came a slow, deliberate dragging sound. Footsteps, one after the other, heavy against the floorboards, as if someone were pulling their limbs forward with purpose rather than grace. From behind a stack of crates, the masked man emerged. The porcelain mask, cracked down one side, caught the narrow beam of light. He didn't speak. He never spoke. But he didn't need to. The atmosphere shifted. The air grew heavier, colder, and Lily felt as though the walls were closing in. "You kept me here for years," Ethan said, his voice rising. "You lied. Said no one was coming. That I didn't matter. But she came. She found me. And now we're leaving." The masked figure tilted his head, almost curiously, like a predator studying prey that had started to fight back. Then he took a step forward. Lily held her ground. "You can't control him anymore. It's over." The man suddenly lunged. Ethan swung the pipe, catching the figure in the shoulder. It made a sickening crack, but the masked man barely flinched. He grabbed Ethan and slammed him into the wall. The boy crumpled to the ground with a groan. "No!" Lily screamed. She lunged forward, striking the attacker with the flashlight. The bulb burst, plunging them into darkness again. She scrambled for the door, her hands groping for the handle, but it was gone. Or rather, she realized with horror there was no handle on this side. It had been sealed from the outside for years. There was no way out. She turned back, her eyes adjusting slightly to the dim emergency light blinking from an old corner panel. The masked man advanced slowly toward her, but Lily wasn't retreating this time. She picked up the pipe from the floor, still warm from Ethan's grip. "Come on, then," she whispered, more to herself than him. "I'm not a little girl anymore." As the figure lunged again, she swung with everything she had. The pipe collided with his arm, and the sound of bones snapping echoed through the room. The masked man stumbled backward into a stack of crates, knocking them over in a thunderous crash. She dropped the pipe and rushed to Ethan's side. He was stirring, his head bleeding slightly, but his eyes flickering open. "Come on," she urged. "We're not done yet." Ethan groaned but nodded. "I know another way." Together, limping and bruised, they scrambled behind a row of shelves. At the far wall, barely visible behind layers of insulation, was a narrow shaft leading downward. Ethan pulled aside the covering. A service chute, he panted. It connects to the old furnace tunnels. It's tight, but we can fit. From behind them came a groan, deep, inhuman. The masked man was moving again. Without hesitation, Lily helped Ethan into the shaft and crawled in behind him. As they disappeared into the narrow darkness, the final thing Lily saw was the porcelain mask, shattered in the corner. Yet somehow, the laughter still echoed. They weren't safe yet. The air inside the service chute was thick with dust and decay. Every breath Lily took tasted like rusted iron and old ash. Her hands scraped against jagged metal as she crawled, and behind her, Ethan's breathing was ragged. But they didn't stop, not even when the walls narrowed, or when distant echoes made it seem like something was still following them. The chute eventually dropped them into a long-forgotten corridor beneath the carnival. It was part of the old boiler system, used decades ago when the park still relied on steam power for its larger attractions. Pipes snaked across the ceiling, dripping brown water into puddles that reflected flickering shadows. "We used to be brought down here," Ethan whispered, "when someone disobeyed. He made us wait in the dark, sometimes for days." Lily squeezed his hand. "You're never going to be in the dark again. I promise." They followed the tunnel for what felt like hours. Every door they passed was locked. Most had warning signs: danger, high pressure, and no entry, or simply forgotten. The walls were lined with faded graffiti, names, dates, drawings of crying faces, and open cages. Messages scrawled in childish handwriting. "Help me. Still here. He watches." One door, however, stood slightly ajar. Lily hesitated. "Should we?" Ethan nodded. "It might be a way out." They pushed it open and stepped into a vast underground chamber. Rusted machinery lined the walls, and in the center stood what looked like a massive control panel, still blinking faintly with power. Wires trailed like vines across the floor, and the remnants of old security monitors flickered with static. "This was the control hub," Ethan said. "They could watch the entire carnival from here. Every ride, every tunnel." Lily moved toward the monitors. Most were dead, but one flickered to life. A grainy feed from a camera positioned under the carousel. She gasped. The masked man, still alive, still moving, was there dragging a crate with something squirming inside. Not a mannequin. A person. Lily's blood ran cold. "He has another child." Ethan looked at her, his eyes wide. "We have to stop him. We can't just escape." Lily stared at the screen, fury building inside her. "Then we stop him. Here. Tonight." But as she said it, the static on the monitors began to clear. And camera by camera, the system came alive again, revealing something she hadn't expected. There were more masked figures, more rooms, more captives. The carnival wasn't just a prison for one monster. It was an entire network, a nightmare buried beneath bright lights and laughter. And now, they were in its heart. The moment the realization struck that the masked man wasn't alone, that the carnival hid an entire network of captors, Lily felt the full weight of their situation settle on her shoulders. This wasn't just about saving Ethan anymore. This was about all of them. The children still trapped. The lives still chained beneath the surface of this nightmare park. Ethan stood by the monitor, his fists clenched, eyes glued to the blinking screens. "I thought I was the only one. All those years, I never heard anyone else." "They kept you separated," Lily said softly, scanning the monitors one by one. "They didn't want you to know. Divide and control." Some screens showed empty storage rooms. Others displayed dim cells, barely large enough to lie down in. And in one, a young boy, no older than 6, curled in a corner, arms wrapped tightly around his knees, rocking slowly as the camera blinked right above him. Lily's jaw tightened. "We can't leave them." "We won't." "But how?" Ethan asked. "They know these tunnels better than we do. They have cameras, keys, probably weapons." Lily turned from the monitors and scanned the old control room. There had to be something, some way to disrupt their grip on this underground nightmare. Her eyes landed on a rusted breaker panel labeled Main Power Relay, Carnival Grid. Beneath it, faded wiring diagrams detailed how electricity was routed through the carnival. Rides, lights, cameras, alarms. She pointed. If we cut the main power, we knock out the surveillance. Maybe even unlock some of these security doors. And we create chaos, enough to sneak through and get to the others. Ethan nodded slowly. But we'll have to move fast. The moment they realize what's happening. We'll already be gone, Lily said. And we'll take every last kid with us. They found an old tool kit buried under a pile of dusty tarps. Inside were wire cutters, a crowbar, even a small blowtorch, clearly once used for maintenance. Lily handed the crowbar to Ethan and took the cutters herself. The two of them worked side by side, following the wire paths through the maze of steel and decay. Suddenly, from the shadows of the control room, a soft voice echoed. "You're going to try and save them?" Lily spun around, tools raised, heart thudding. But it wasn't a masked man. It was a girl, maybe 14, gaunt, pale, with large hollow eyes. She stepped into the dim light, arms wrapped tightly around her body. Her name tag, barely readable, said Daisy. "I saw you on the cameras," she whispered. "I used to be like them. Like you. But I never left. I didn't think anyone could." Ethan stepped forward. "Are you still working with them?" She shook her head. "Not by choice. I help in the control room because he said it was better than the cages. But I've wanted out for years." Lily stepped closer. "Then help us. We're going to shut it all down. Every last piece of it." Daisy looked from Lily to Ethan, then back to the monitors. Slowly, she nodded. "I know where they keep the keys. And the emergency exit tunnels. But we'll have to move quickly." Lily handed her the flashlight. "Lead the way." As the three of them crept through the furnace tunnels, the old walls echoed with distant mechanical whirs and occasional footsteps overhead. They reached the central breaker panel tucked behind a rusted security gate. With a quick snap of the crowbar, Ethan forced it open. Lily counted down. 3, 2, 1. The power grid died with a single jolt. The flickering monitors went dark. Above them, the mechanical sounds of the carnival, music, lights, recorded laughter, stuttered and fell silent. For the first time in decades, the park was quiet, and it was time to break the chains. The silence above was almost more unsettling than the music had been. Without the mechanical laughter and carnival jingles, the park felt like a corpse. Still, hollow, as if the power outage had revealed its true nature, an abandoned shell built on secrets. Daisy led them through a side corridor that branched off the furnace tunnels, past forgotten lockers and decaying uniforms. "They keep the master keys in the overseer's locker room," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "It's where the masked ones prepare. Only a few of them have full access." As they reached a rusted door labeled "Authorized Personnel Only," Daisy produced a small pin she'd hidden in her sleeve. "I stole this weeks ago. Thought I might need it." She worked quickly on the lock, her thin fingers moving with precision until the latch gave way. Inside, the air was rank with sweat and mildew. Rows of lockers lined the room, most with strange symbols carved into their doors. Ethan pointed to one. "That was his," he said. "The one who kept me." Lily nodded grimly and moved to a larger locker in the back, padlocked but not reinforced. One strike from a crowbar, and it burst open. Inside was a ring of heavy keys labeled with numbers and symbols. Cell 1A, Cell 3C, Observation, Ride Access. And beneath them, a small black journal. Lily opened it. Inside were notes. Rotations, schedules, names, ages. Notes like subject compliant, transferred to Cell 4B, monitor for escape attempts. Ethan read over her shoulder, his face paling. "They kept records like we were animals." "We'll bring this with us," Lily said, shoving it in her bag. "It's proof." Daisy led them through a service tunnel toward the holding area. As they passed under a grated vent, they heard voices above. Confusion. Panic. "Sir, the cameras are down. Someone's in the tunnels. Find a girl. She's not alone." The chaos was working. They reached the first row of holding rooms. The keys clicked in the locks, each one releasing the door with a heavy metallic thunk. Inside were children of all ages, some barely awake, others alert and terrified. Lily crouched by a small boy with wide, frightened eyes. "It's okay. We're getting you out." Follow the girl with the flashlight. "Her name's Daisy." One by one, the children were released. Daisy kept count. 8 in the first hall, 5 more in the second. The older ones helped the younger ones walk, some carrying toddlers, others guiding the blind or dazed. As they reached the last door, a sharp alarm pierced the silence. They found the backup generator, Ethan said. "We have to go now," Daisy urged. Lily turned to the group. "Everyone stay close. Follow the light. No matter what happens, don't stop moving." With the journal in her bag, the keys in Ethan's hand, and Daisy leading the way, they ran through the hidden tunnel toward the emergency exit gate, a narrow steel hatch long forgotten beneath the carousel's base. But as they approached, they heard it. The masked man. And he wasn't alone. They had come to shut it down. But the carnival wasn't going quietly. The tunnel leading to the emergency exit trembled as footsteps thundered from behind. Shadows stretched along the damp, crumbling walls, and the sound of heavy boots on concrete grew louder with each second. Lily tightened her grip on the crowbar. Ethan clutched the key ring like a lifeline. Daisy held the flashlight steady, leading the group of rescued children down the dark passage. Then a voice echoed behind them, cold, familiar, and venomous. "You think you can destroy what we've built?" Lily turned. The masked man stepped into view, flanked by 2 more figures in identical black clothing. Their masks gleamed in the flickering light of the failing emergency bulbs. He raised a baton in one hand, a shock prod in the other. "You brought the chaos. But chaos has consequences." Lily stepped forward, placing herself between the children and the figures. "Your reign ends here. This nightmare, it's over." He laughed behind the mask, the sound chilling. "You have no idea what you're interfering with. You think this is just about a few kids? This is bigger than you can comprehend. We provide a service, order, discipline, purpose. You're monsters," Daisy shouted, voice shaking but firm. "And monsters fall." One of the masked guards lunged forward. Ethan swung the crowbar, catching him square in the knee. The man howled and dropped. Lily used the moment to shove another aside, the clang of metal echoing through the tunnel. The children screamed but stayed close, forming a protective circle with the older ones shielding the small. Daisy turned the flashlight and signaled down the side passage. "That's the shortcut. Go now." The children bolted, guided by Daisy's light. Lily stayed behind with Ethan, facing the leader. "You ruined everything," the man hissed. He was meant to be the next gatekeeper. Lily's heart pounded. "Ethan isn't yours. He never was. And neither are any of them." The masked man lunged, swinging the prod. Sparks flew. Lily ducked, grabbed the dropped baton from the fallen guard, and slammed it into his ribs. He staggered back, but wasn't finished. He came again, swinging wildly, knocking pipes and scraping walls. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a lighter, the same one the masked man used to threaten him all those years ago. He flicked it open, held it to the leaking gas pipe above. The masked man paused, realizing too late what Ethan was doing. "I'm not your prisoner anymore," Ethan whispered. He dropped the lighter. Flames erupted behind them as the gas ignited. A blast surged through the tunnel, knocking everyone off their feet. Dust and smoke filled the air. Lily grabbed Ethan's arm and pulled him to his feet. Together they ran, coughing, eyes burning, toward the side exit. They found Daisy and the children huddled at the steel hatch beneath the carousel. With the master key, Ethan opened it, revealing a narrow shaft leading to a ladder. One by one, the children began to climb. As the smoke spread behind them, the group ascended into the night, crawling out from beneath the rotting ride where this all began. Lily emerged last, pulling the hatch shut behind her. The moment it clicked, she collapsed onto the grass, staring up at the starry sky, her chest heaving. The nightmare was over, or so they thought, because what they had uncovered was just the beginning. Sunlight filtered through the leaves of the old fairground, casting long golden beams onto the broken carousel. The place had been silent for hours. Emergency vehicles lined the perimeter. Police, ambulances, forensic teams, everywhere. The once-forgotten carnival was now a crime scene. Lily sat on the back of an ambulance, a warm blanket around her shoulders. She watched as officers led the children into safety, each one wrapped in blankets, each face dazed but free. Ethan sat beside her, a cup of water in hand, staring blankly at the rising sun. "I still don't believe it," he murmured. "That we made it out. That they're safe." "You did it, Ethan," Lily said softly. "You held on. You survived. And you helped save them all." Nearby, Daisy stood beside a detective, recounting everything she knew. Names, routines, tunnels. The black journal had been handed over to the authorities. Inside were enough entries, enough names, to open a wide-scale investigation. "They'll never be able to hide again," Lily said. "It's all going to come out." Just then, a young girl approached them. She couldn't have been older than 6. Her cheeks were dirty, her hair matted, but her eyes were clear. She held out a crumpled paper. Ethan took it and opened it. A childish drawing, stick figures beneath a rainbow. The tallest one had brown hair and held hands with a smaller one labeled Ethan. "She said you protected her," Lily smiled. "Looks like you made a big impression." Ethan knelt down and handed the picture back with a smile. "You're free now. No one's ever going to hurt you again." The girl nodded and ran to join the others. Later that evening, Lily stood beside the rusting gates of the carnival, watching as police sealed them with chains. She knew this wasn't truly over. Healing would take time, for Ethan, for the children, for her. But the darkness had been broken. The cycle ended. She turned to Ethan. "You ready to go home?" He looked at her, a long pause in his gaze. "Home," he repeated. "I haven't said that word in years." Lily smiled and reached for his hand. "Then let's start saying it again." As they walked away, the last rays of sunlight fell over the carousel one final time. And beneath it, deep in the earth, the flames had gone out. But in their place, something new had begun to burn. Hope. Thank you for following this journey. If you found this story gripping and moving, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more emotional, suspenseful tales like this.